The morning started like any other on Galactic Academy Station Epsilon 7. Hyunwoo Park stood at the front of Classroom 7B, pointing at a holographic display of cellular structures. 23 students from 12 different species sat at their desks, some taking notes, others staring blankly at the projection. Teaching xenobiology to teenagers was challenging enough when they were all the same species. With this mixed group, it was like juggling while riding a bicycle. As you can see, Hyunwoo said, mitochondria serve similar functions across most carbon-based life forms, even though the structures look different. He glanced around the room. Most students seemed to be paying attention. The 3 Velkari cubs in the back row, however, were unusually restless. Velkari were cat-like creatures covered in sleek fur that ranged from deep blue to silver. They stood about 4 feet tall at this age, with large eyes and sharp claws that could retract into their paws. Their species had a reputation throughout the galaxy. Warriors, fierce, aggressive, never backing down from a fight. Even their children carried this intensity. The 3 cubs, Rexon, Vara, and Kos, had been growling at each other for the past 5 minutes. Hyunwoo had learned to recognize the signs of an impending conflict, but he was hoping they would settle down on their own. He continued his lecture, keeping one eye on the back row. Now, if you'll access Module 7 on your tablets. That was when it happened. Vara reached for the learning tablet at the center of their shared desk. Rexon's paw shot out and grabbed it first. Kos snarled and lunged across the desk. Within seconds, all 3 cubs were on their feet, claws extended, teeth bared. The fur along their spines stood straight up, making them look twice their normal size. The other students immediately pushed back from their desks. A Threxian student with 6 arms raised all of them in a defensive posture. 2 Milvian bird-like students flapped their wings nervously. Everyone knew what Velkari cubs were capable of when they fought. Hyunwoo moved quickly but calmly. Rexon, Vera, Kos, that's enough. His voice was firm but not loud. The cubs didn't seem to hear him. They circled each other, hissing and spitting. Rexon took a swipe at Vara, his claws missing her face by inches. What Hyunwoo didn't know was that each student wore a biomonitor, a small device attached to their uniform that tracked vital signs. The Academy used these to ensure student safety. When the 3 Velkari cubs' heart rates spiked and their adrenaline levels jumped, the monitors did what they were programmed to do. They sent an emergency alert to station security. The alert was classified as Level Red, Juvenile Velkari Aggression Event. Protocol was clear. Armed response immediate. Hyunwoo stepped closer to the fighting cubs, ignoring the gasps from other students. He had dealt with conflicts before, though never with Velkari. He knew what the textbook said. Velkari cubs in aggressive mode were dangerous and should be contained by security personnel wearing protective gear. But looking at these 3 young beings, he didn't see warriors. He saw scared kids fighting over a toy. "Hey," he said softly, lowering himself to one knee. "Hey, it's okay. Look at me." Kos turned his head toward the human teacher, teeth still bared. His eyes were wild, unfocused. Hyunwoo slowly extended his hand, palm up, non-threatening. "Nobody's going to take anything from you. We can share. It's all right." Vara was breathing hard, her whole body trembling. Not with rage, Hyunwoo realized. With fear, she was scared. They all were. The fight wasn't about dominance or territory. It was about anxiety and confusion, and not knowing how to handle their emotions. Hyunwoo sat down completely, crossing his legs on the classroom floor. This put him below the cub's eye level, making him appear smaller, less threatening. "Come here," he said gently. "It's okay. You're safe." Rexon made a confused chirping sound. His claws retracted slightly. Hyunwoo patted his lap. "Come on, take a breath. All of you." That was when the classroom door exploded inward. 6 security officers stormed through the entrance, weapons raised and charged. Commander Tavix led the group, his massive 8-foot frame filling the doorway. His species, the Granthians, were known as the galaxy's best security forces. Strong, disciplined, and completely committed to protocol. "Everyone down!" Tavix's voice boomed across the classroom. The students who weren't already on the floor threw themselves under their desks. Red targeting lights from the security weapons swept across the room, searching for the threat. Hyunwoo looked up from his position on the floor. He was sitting cross-legged with all 3 Velkari cubs now pressed against him. Vara had her face buried in his chest. Kos was curled against his left side. Rexon was draped across his lap. All three were making a sound Hyunwoo had never heard from Velkari before. A deep rumbling purr that vibrated through their entire bodies. The security team froze. Commander Tavix's four eyes widened in disbelief. His weapon, still raised, wavered slightly. The other officers looked at each other in confusion. This was not what their training had prepared them for. Teacher Park? Tavix's voice had lost its commanding boom. Now it was just confused. What? What are you doing? Hyunwoo adjusted his position slightly, being careful not to disturb the cubs. I'm sitting with my students. Could you please lower your weapons? You're scaring them. Scaring them? One of the security officers, a reptilian sklith, couldn't hide the shock in her voice. Sir, those are Velkari cubs in active aggression mode. The biomonitors detected fear, not aggression, Hyunwoo interrupted gently. He stroked Vera's head and her purring grew louder. They were scared and overwhelmed. They needed comfort, not containment. Tevix slowly lowered his weapon. His officers followed his lead, but they kept their hands on their holsters. The commander took a careful step forward, his eyes locked on the three cubs. Teacher Park, Velkari do not purr. They have not exhibited comfort purring behavior for over 3,000 years. It is not... They don't do that anymore. Well, Hyunwoo said, looking down at the three vibrating bundles of fur pressed against him. Apparently they do. The classroom was completely silent except for the purring. The other students slowly emerged from under their desks, staring at the impossible scene before them. A Threxian student raised one of her 6 hands. Teacher Park, can I record this? No one's going to believe it. No recordings, Tavix said automatically, though his eyes never left the cubs. He tapped his communication device. Command, this is Tavix. The situation in classroom 7B is contained. No injuries, no threat. But we're going to need a supervisor here, and probably a xenopsychologist. And maybe someone from the Velkari delegation. Hyunwoo shifted again, and Kos made a small complaining sound, pressing closer. Commander, with respect, could you and your team maybe step back a bit? The weapons are making everyone nervous. Tavix looked at his weapon as if seeing it for the first time. He holstered it and gestured for his team to do the same. They backed toward the door but didn't leave. Protocol required they maintain observation of any level red alert until officially cleared. How did you do this? Tavix asked finally. What technique did you use? Hyunwoo looked genuinely confused by the question. Technique? I sat down with them. Let them know they were safe. Kids act out when they're scared or overwhelmed. You just need to help them feel secure again. Kids, Tavix repeated slowly. You called them kids. They are kids. They're what, 12 years old in Velkari years? They're children, scared children who didn't know how to handle their emotions. One of the security officers whispered to another. Does he not know what Velkari cubs can do? They have combat training from age 5. Those claws can cut through steel. Hyunwoo heard the whisper. Of course I know what they're capable of. I've read their species file. But capability and intention are different things. They didn't want to hurt anyone. They were just scared. Rexon lifted his head and looked at Hyunwoo with large, trusting eyes. The cub's breathing had returned to normal. The aggressive spike in his fur had flattened back down. He looked like what he was, a young student having a bad morning. Vara finally pulled her face from Hyunwoo's chest. Her eyes were wet. Hyunwoo gently wiped a tear from her furry cheek. Better now? He asked softly. She nodded and tucked her head back against him. Tavix activated his comm again. Command updating situation report. Teacher Park has 3 Velkari cubs in physical contact. They are purring. Yes, I said purring. I need immediate guidance on protocol. This is outside all documented scenarios. More footsteps echoed in the hallway. Within minutes, the classroom was filled with academy officials, medical staff, and representatives from multiple species. Everyone wanted to see the impossible sight. 3 Velkari cubs, peaceful and content, held in the arms of a human teacher who seemed completely unaware he had just done something no one in the galaxy thought possible. As officials whispered and pointed, as cameras were forbidden and reports were filed, Hyunwoo simply sat on the classroom floor and let 3 scared kids find comfort in his presence. He didn't understand what all the fuss was about. He was just being a teacher, just taking care of his students. But in that moment, everything in the galaxy had changed. The officials just didn't know it yet. The morning started like any other on Galactic Academy Station Epsilon 7. Hyunwoo Park stood at the front of Classroom 7B, pointing at a holographic display of cellular structures. 23 students from 12 different species sat at their desks, some taking notes, others staring blankly at the projection. Teaching xenobiology to teenagers was challenging enough when they were all the same species. With this mixed group, it was like juggling while riding a bicycle. As you can see, Hyunwoo said, mitochondria serve similar functions across most carbon-based life forms, even though the structures look different. He glanced around the room. Most students seemed to be paying attention. The 3 Velkari cubs in the back row, however, were unusually restless. Velkari were cat-like creatures, covered in sleek fur that ranged from deep blue to silver. They stood about 4 feet tall at this age, with large eyes and sharp claws that could retract into their paws. Their species had a reputation throughout the galaxy. Warriors, fierce, aggressive, never backing down from a fight. Even their children carried this intensity. The 3 cubs, Rexon, Vera, and Kos, had been growling at each other for the past 5 minutes. Hyunwoo had learned to recognize the signs of an impending conflict, but he was hoping they would settle down on their own. He continued his lecture, keeping one eye on the back row. Now, if you'll access Module 7 on your tablets. That was when it happened. Vara reached for the learning tablet at the center of their shared desk. Rexon's paw shot out and grabbed it first. Kos snarled and lunged across the desk. Within seconds, all 3 cubs were on their feet, claws extended, teeth bared. The fur along their spines stood straight up, making them look twice their normal size. The other students immediately pushed back from their desks. A Threxian student with 6 arms raised all of them in a defensive posture. 2 Milvian bird-like students flapped their wings nervously. Everyone knew what Velkari cubs were capable of when they fought. Hyunwoo moved quickly but calmly. Rexon, Vara, Kos, that's enough. His voice was firm but not loud. The cubs didn't seem to hear him. They circled each other, hissing and spitting. Rexon took a swipe at Vara, his claws missing her face by inches. What Hyunwoo didn't know was that each student wore a biomonitor, a small device attached to their uniform that tracked vital signs. The academy used these to ensure student safety. When the 3 Velkari cubs' heart rates spiked and their adrenaline levels jumped, the monitors did what they were programmed to do. They sent an emergency alert to station security. The alert was classified as Level Red, Juvenile Velkari Aggression Event. Protocol was clear. Armed response, immediate. Hyunwoo stepped closer to the fighting cubs, ignoring the gasps from other students. He had dealt with conflicts before, though never with Velkari. He knew what the textbook said. Velkari cubs in aggressive mode were dangerous and should be contained by security personnel wearing protective gear. But looking at these 3 young beings, he didn't see warriors. He saw scared kids fighting over a toy. "Hey," he said softly, lowering himself to one knee. "Hey, it's okay. Look at me." Kos turned his head toward the human teacher, teeth still bared. His eyes were wild, unfocused. Hyunwoo slowly extended his hand, palm up, non-threatening. "Nobody's going to take anything from you. We can share. It's all right." Vera was breathing hard, her whole body trembling. Not with rage, Hyunwoo realized. With fear, she was scared. They all were. The fight wasn't about dominance or territory. It was about anxiety and confusion and not knowing how to handle their emotions. Hyunwoo sat down completely, crossing his legs on the classroom floor. This put him below the cub's eye level, making him appear smaller, less threatening. "Come here," he said gently. "It's okay. You're safe." Rexon made a confused chirping sound. His claws retracted slightly. Hyunwoo patted his lap. "Come on, take a breath. All of you." That was when the classroom door exploded inward. 6 security officers stormed through the entrance, weapons raised and charged. Commander Tavix led the group, his massive 8-foot frame filling the doorway. His species, the Granthians, were known as the galaxy's best security forces, strong, disciplined, and completely committed to protocol. "Everyone down!" Tavix's voice boomed across the classroom. The students who weren't already on the floor threw themselves under their desks. Red targeting lights from the security weapons swept across the room, searching for the threat. Hyunwoo looked up from his position on the floor. He was sitting cross-legged with all 3 Velkari cubs now pressed against him. Vara had her face buried in his chest. Kos was curled against his left side. Rexon was draped across his lap. All three were making a sound Hyunwoo had never heard from Valkyrie before. A deep, rumbling purr that vibrated through their entire bodies. The security team froze. Commander Tavix's four eyes widened in disbelief. His weapon, still raised, wavered slightly. The other officers looked at each other in confusion. This was not what their training had prepared them for. "Teacher Park?" Tavix's voice had lost its commanding boom. Now it was just confused.
"What?
What are you doing?" Hyunwoo adjusted his position slightly, being careful not to disturb the cubs. "I'm sitting with my students. Could you please lower your weapons? You're scaring them?" Scaring them? One of the security officers, a reptilian sklith, couldn't hide the shock in her voice. "Sir, those are Valkyrie cubs in active aggression mode." The biomonitors detected fear, not aggression," Hyunwoo interrupted gently. He stroked Vara's head and her purring grew louder. They were scared and overwhelmed. They needed comfort, not containment. Tavix slowly lowered his weapon. His officers followed his lead, but they kept their hands on their holsters. The commander took a careful step forward. His eyes locked on the three cubs. "Teacher Park, Valkyrie do not purr. They have not exhibited comfort purring behavior for over 3,000 years. It is not. They don't do that anymore." "Well," Hyunwoo said, looking down at the three vibrating bundles of fur pressed against him. "Apparently they do." The classroom was completely silent except for the purring. The other students slowly emerged from under their desks, staring at the impossible scene before them. A Threxian student raised one of her 6 hands. "Teacher Park, can I record this?" "No one's going to believe it." "No recordings," Tavix said automatically, though his eyes never left the cubs. He tapped his communication device. "Command, this is Tavix. The situation in classroom 7B is contained, no injuries, no threat, but we're going to need a supervisor here, and probably a xenopsychologist, and maybe someone from the Valkyrie delegation." Hyunwoo shifted again and Koss made a small complaining sound, pressing closer. "Commander, with respect, could you and your team maybe step back a bit? The weapons are making everyone nervous." Tavix looked at his weapon as if seeing it for the first time. He holstered it and gestured for his team to do the same. They backed toward the door but didn't leave. Protocol required they maintain observation of any level red alert until officially cleared. "How did you do this?" Tavix asked finally. "What technique did you use?" Hyunwoo looked genuinely confused by the question. "Technique? I sat down with them. Let them know they were safe. Kids act out when they're scared or overwhelmed. You just need to help them feel secure again." "Kids," Tavix repeated slowly. "You called them kids. They are kids. They're 12 years old in Valkyrie years? They're children, scared children who didn't know how to handle their emotions." One of the security officers whispered to another. "Does he not know what Valkyrie cubs can do? They have combat training from age 5. Those claws can cut through steel." Hyunwoo heard the whisper. "Of course I know what they're capable of. I've read their species file, but capability and intention are different things. They didn't want to hurt anyone. They were just scared." Rexon lifted his head and looked at Hyunwoo with large, trusting eyes. The cub's breathing had returned to normal. The aggressive spike in his fur had flattened back down. He looked like what he was, a young student having a bad morning. Farah finally pulled her face from Hyunwoo's chest. Her eyes were wet. Hyunwoo gently wiped a tear from her furry cheek. "Better now?" he asked softly. She nodded and tucked her head back against him. Tavix activated his comm again. "Command updating situation report. Teacher Park has 3 Valkyrie cubs in physical contact. They are purring." "Yes, I said purring. I need immediate guidance on protocol. This is outside all documented scenarios." More footsteps echoed in the hallway. Within minutes, the classroom was filled with academy officials, medical staff, and representatives from multiple species. Everyone wanted to see the impossible sight. 3 Valkyrie cubs, peaceful and content, held in the arms of a human teacher who seemed completely unaware he had just done something no one in the galaxy thought possible. As officials whispered and pointed, as cameras were forbidden and reports were filed, Hyunwoo simply sat on the classroom floor and let 3 scared kids find comfort in his presence. He didn't understand what all the fuss was about. He was just being a teacher, just taking care of his students, but in that moment everything in the galaxy had changed. The officials just didn't know it yet. "Is it?" Hyunwoo asked. "Has any student been harmed by my actions?" The board members looked at each other. The Sklith legal advisor checked her notes. No documented injuries resulting from your interventions. However, the absence of harm does not indicate the absence of risk. Jia Kim leaned back in her chair. If I may, I'd like to approach this from a different angle. She looked at Hyunwoo. Teacher Park, have you studied any xenopsychology or child development theory for non-human species? I've read the basic materials provided by the Academy, Hyunwoo admitted. But most of my understanding comes from observation and interaction. So you're operating on instinct, Professor Thalen said. Human instinct applied to alien children. Do you see the problem? I see that 47 times my instinct has helped a student who is struggling. I see that no one has been hurt. I see that students in my classes report higher satisfaction scores than average. Hyunwoo paused. I see that 3 Velkari cubs who were terrified found comfort when they needed it. Elder Thavros stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. The sudden movement made several board members flinch. The Velkari elder was tall and powerfully built, even in his advanced age. He walked around the table and approached Hyunwoo, stopping just a few feet away. Teacher Park, since the incident 3 days ago, do you know what has happened? Thavros's voice was low and intense. Rexon's parents came to collect him. Standard procedure after an aggression event. But Rexon refused to leave. He said he wanted to stay at the academy. He said he felt safe here. A Velkari cub, feeling safe. Speaking those words out loud, Thavros began to pace. Vara's family called to demand answers. They wanted to know what you did to their daughter. She has been displaying what our psychologists call regressive behavior. She asks about you. She wants to know when she can return to your class. She cries at night. Velkari children do not cry, Teacher Park. They are taught from age 3 that tears are weakness. Maybe that's the problem, Hyunwoo said softly. The room went silent. Every being stared at him. Excuse me? Thavros turned slowly. Hyunwoo stood up, meeting the elder's eyes. With all respect, Elder Thavros, maybe teaching 3-year-olds that crying is weakness is the problem. Maybe telling children they can't show fear or sadness or need comfort is what makes them aggressive and unhappy. Maybe the purring didn't disappear from your species. Maybe you just trained it out of them. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Administrator Vex's color went to warning red. Professor Thalen's feathers puffed up in alarm. Jia Kim closed her eyes briefly as if praying for patience. But Thavros didn't explode in anger. Instead, he stared at Hyunwoo for a long moment. You are either very brave or very foolish to say such things to a Velkari elder. I'm neither. I'm just a teacher who wants what's best for his students. Thavros returned to his seat but didn't sit down. He gripped the back of his chair. The Velkari delegation has discussed this matter extensively. We are divided. Some believe you have corrupted our cubs, made them soft. Others believe... He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Others believe you have shown them something we took away from them long ago. Jia Kim seized the moment. Which brings us to the purpose of this hearing. We need to understand what Teacher Park did, and whether it can be replicated, regulated, or prohibited. We need data. You want to run experiments, Hyunwoo said flatly. We want to understand, Vex corrected, her color shifting to sincere blue. You have demonstrated an ability that appears unique among our staff. You can calm aggressive juveniles from multiple species using methods that seem to contradict established safety protocols. If this is a teachable skill, it could revolutionize how we handle student welfare. If it's something specific to humans, we need to understand it. And if you can't understand it, Hyunwoo asked. Professor Thalen folded his wings. Then we must consider whether allowing you to continue teaching presents an unacceptable risk, regardless of past success. The Sklith legal advisor nodded. The board proposes a controlled study. You would work with juveniles from various aggressive species under monitored conditions. We would observe your methods, measure outcomes, and determine if your approach can be standardized into new protocols. You want me to perform for you, Hyunwoo said, not hiding his distaste. Treat children like test subjects so you can write better rules. We want to keep students safe, Vex said firmly. That is our primary mission. Your methods work, Teacher Park, but we don't understand why. That makes administrators nervous. Help us understand. Hyunwoo looked at Jia Kim. What do you think? She met his eyes. I think you don't really have a choice. It's this or termination of your contract. But I also think... She glanced at the other board members. I think there's something happening here that's bigger than protocol violations. I've started researching human child development practices. The preliminary findings are fascinating. Humans might be uniquely suited for certain types of caregiving. If that's true, it's important information for the galaxy to have. Elder Thavros spoke again, his voice quieter now. Teacher Park Koss asked his mother yesterday when you would come back. He said you made him feel good, safe. Those are not words Velkari cubs typically use. My people don't know what to do with this information. Help us understand what you did, please. The please surprised Hyunwoo. A Velkari elder didn't ask, they commanded. But Thavros was asking, maybe even begging in his way. Hyunwoo sat back down. If I agree, I have conditions. The juveniles are treated with dignity and respect. No stressful situations created artificially. They're not lab subjects, and I get to stop any time I feel the children are being harmed or upset. The board members conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, Administrator Vex spoke. Agreed. We'll arrange appropriate subjects and monitoring. You'll be reinstated to limited duty during the study period. As the hearing ended and board members filed out, Jia Kim approached Hyunwoo. That was risky what you said to Elder Thavros. I know, but it was true. Truth doesn't always protect you from consequences. She handed him a data pad. I've been compiling information about human bonding behavior and child-rearing practices. You might want to read this before the demonstrations start. It might help you explain what you do. Hyunwoo took the pad. Jia, do you really think there's something different about humans? Something that makes us better at this? She smiled slightly. I think humans spent millions of years learning how to keep helpless babies alive in a dangerous world. That might have taught us some things other species never needed to learn, but we'll see. That's what science is for. As Hyunwoo left the hearing room, he wondered what he had agreed to, testing his methods with difficult juveniles, being observed and analyzed, explaining something he did by instinct. But if it helped even one more scared kid feel safe, maybe it was worth it. Jia Kim's office was smaller than most on the station, but she had made it comfortable. Earth plants grew in careful arrangements along the walls. Real paper books lined one shelf, a luxury in space. Pictures of her family back on Earth sat on her desk. Hyunwoo had been here several times since the hearing, helping with the research project that seemed to grow bigger every day. Today, Dr. Mira Kato was here too. The xenobiologist was young for her position, barely 30 with quick dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. She had spread papers and tablets across every available surface in Jia's office. Data charts, biological scans, behavioral studies. It looked like organized chaos. Okay, Mira said, pushing her glasses up her nose. I think I'm starting to see the pattern. She pulled up a holographic display showing human brain scans. This is a human adult viewing images of human babies. See these areas light up? That's the brain's reward center. Dopamine, oxytocin, all the good feeling chemicals. Hyunwoo leaned forward. That makes sense. Babies are cute. We're wired to respond to them. Right. But here's where it gets interesting. Mira changed the image. This is the same human viewing images of puppies, kittens, baby seals, even infant aliens from species they've never encountered before. Same brain regions light up, same chemical response, so humans find all babies cute? Hyunwoo asked. Not just cute. Humans have a biological imperative to protect and nurture young beings even when they're not human young. Most species don't have this. A Velkari adult sees a Velkari cub and has a species-specific response. They see a Milvian chick and feel nothing special. Maybe curiosity, but not parental instinct. Jia pulled up another display. I've been researching human evolutionary history. Humans evolved as what scientists call cooperative breeders. That means raising children wasn't just the parents' job. It was the whole community's job. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors, everyone helped raise the young. All right, Hyunwoo said slowly, trying to follow. But lots of species have extended families. Not like humans, Mira said. Human babies are uniquely helpless. They can't walk, can't feed themselves, can't even hold their own heads up for months. This is unusual in the animal kingdom. Most species, babies can at least do basic survival things within days or weeks. Human babies? They're helpless for years. She pulled up a comparison chart. A Velkari cub can walk within hours of birth, can feed itself within a week, can survive independently by age 5 if necessary. A human baby? Completely dependent for years. This created massive evolutionary pressure. Pressure to do what? Hyunwoo asked. to create biological and psychological systems that make adults want to care for helpless young. Not just their own young, any young. Because in a cooperative breeding system, you might need to care for your neighbor's baby while they hunt, or your sister's baby while she gathers food. The babies who survived were the ones whose community wanted to take care of them. Gia nodded. So humans evolved to have strong caregiving instincts triggered by any being that seems young and vulnerable. It's not a conscious choice. It's biological programming. That's the theory, Mira said. And the data seems to support it. I've been going through station medical records, with permission, of course. Every time human staff members encounter distressed juveniles of any species, their stress hormones spike. Then when they provide comfort or help, their oxytocin levels increase. It's the same chemical response human parents have with their own children. Hyunwoo thought about the Valkyrie cubs, about all his students over the years. So when I see a scared kid, my brain just decides I need to help? Basically, yes. Your conscious mind might rationalize it as being a good teacher, but underneath that, your biology is screaming at you to protect and comfort the vulnerable young being. Most humans feel this. You just act on it more than most. There was a knock at the door. Dae-jung Lee entered, carrying his own pile of research materials. The station psychologist looked tired. He dropped his materials on the last empty chair and leaned against the wall instead. Sorry I'm late. I just finished interviewing the Valkyrie cubs' parents. That was illuminating. How so? Gia asked. Dae-jung rubbed his eyes. The parents are confused and upset, but not for the reasons we thought. They're not angry that their cubs are showing affection and comfort-seeking behavior. They're angry that they don't know how to respond to it. One father told me he stood there for 10 minutes while his son cried, and he had no idea what to do. Their culture removed those behaviors generations ago. Now that the cubs are displaying them again, the parents feel incompetent. That's sad, Hyunwoo said quietly. It gets sadder. I asked if they ever felt the urge to comfort their distressed cubs. They said yes sometimes, but they were taught to suppress it. Showing comfort makes cubs weak. Weak cubs become weak adults. Weak adults die in combat or fail in society, so they learn to ignore their own instincts. Mira frowned. But Valkyrie are mammals, right? They should have some basic nurturing instincts. They do, Dae-jung confirmed. But culture can override biology, especially over many generations. Valkyrie culture values strength and independence above all else. They systematically trained the comfort behaviors out of their species, and now, he gestured helplessly, now their cubs meet a human who gives them something they didn't know they were missing, and the parents don't know how to handle it. Have you found similar patterns in other species? Gia asked. Yes and no. Most species have some level of parental care instinct for their own young, but it's usually species-specific and time-limited. Take care of your own offspring until they can survive independently. Then done. Humans seem to have an extended, non-specific nurturing drive that doesn't shut off and doesn't limit itself to human young. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the window. The station orbited a beautiful green planet below. Somewhere down there were beings living their lives, raising their young according to their own cultural norms. So what does this mean for the demonstration? Am I just going to be a science experiment showing off my species' weird biological quirks? It means, Gia said carefully, that we might be documenting something important. Humanity's been part of the galactic community for less than 50 years. We're still the new ones. If humans have a unique capacity for cross-species childcare, that's valuable information. Valuable how? Hyunwoo turned to face them. Mira pulled up another chart. There are 18 species in the Galactic Academy system. Of those, 11 have mandatory youth education programs. Those 11 species send over 50,000 juveniles to mixed species educational facilities every year. And do you know what one of the biggest problems is? Homesickness? Hyunwoo guessed. Close. Cultural isolation and emotional distress. Young beings far from home, surrounded by alien species struggling to adapt. The dropout rate for juveniles under 12 is 43%. Almost half of young students leave within their first year because they can't handle the stress. And you think humans could help with that? I think humans might be naturally suited for it. Look at the data from your classroom specifically. Gia pulled up Hyunwoo's class statistics. Your juvenile student retention rate is 97%. Your students report 72% less stress than average. Their academic performance is 14% higher than comparable mixed-species classrooms. Hyunwoo stared at the numbers. I didn't know that. Because you weren't trying to achieve it. You were just being yourself, just caring about your students. Daejong smiled slightly. That's what makes this remarkable. You're not following a technique or method. You're following your instincts, and those instincts happen to be exactly what many of these young beings need. But it's not just me, Hyunwoo protested. Other humans must do this too. They do, Jia confirmed. We've identified 23 other human staff members on various stations who show similar patterns. High student satisfaction, low dropout rates, frequent protocol violations related to comfort-giving behavior. The pattern holds, but humans are only about 2% of Academy staff, so we didn't notice the pattern until now. Mira started pacing, the way she did when her mind was racing. Think about the implications. The galaxy has been running educational systems for thousands of years. They've optimized for safety, efficiency, academic achievement, but they never optimized for emotional well-being, because most species don't prioritize it the same way humans do. To them, emotional distress is just something juveniles need to overcome on their own. Like the Velkari, Hyunwoo said. Exactly like the Velkari, and the Granthians, and the Sklith, and most others. They believe struggle builds character, that comfort creates weakness. But what if that's not true? What if emotional support actually helps learning and development? Daejong nodded. Human psychology research has proven this for human children. Kids who feel safe and supported learn better. They develop better. They become healthier adults. But we never thought to apply this to alien species because we assumed they were fundamentally different. Are they different? Hyunwoo asked. Biologically, yes. Psychologically, maybe less than we thought. A scared Velkari cub and a scared human child might have very different biology. But fear is fear. The need for safety is universal. The need to feel protected and valued might be more universal than we realized. Jia stood and walked to stand beside Hyunwoo at the window. The demonstration is in 3 days. They've selected 6 juveniles from aggressive species. All of them have behavioral problems. All of them are at risk of being removed from the academy. This is your chance to show the board what human caregiving can do. No pressure, Hyunwoo said sarcastically. Actually, no pressure, Mira said seriously. Just be yourself. Do what you normally do. Let us worry about the science and the politics. You just focus on the kids. Hyunwoo looked at the 3 researchers who had become his friends over the past week. They believed in what he was doing, even if he didn't fully understand it himself. They saw value in something he had always just considered basic decency. What if I fail? He asked quietly. What if the juveniles don't respond? What if I can't help them? Daejong walked over and put a hand on Hyunwoo's shoulder. Then you fail. But I don't think you will. I've seen you with students. I've watched the way you read their body language, respond to their needs, adjust your approach for each individual. You might not understand the science behind it, but you're incredibly skilled at what you do. Plus, Mira added with a grin, you're dealing with scared kids. That's your evolutionary specialty. If millions of years of human evolution optimized for anything, it's making helpless young beings feel safe. Trust your instincts. Jia handed him a data pad. I've compiled all our research so far. Read it if you want, or don't. But remember that what we're documenting isn't a technique or a method. It's you being human. And maybe, just maybe, being human is exactly what the galaxy's children need. That night, Hyunwoo lay in his quarters reading through the research. Brain scans, evolutionary theory, psychological studies. It was strange seeing his actions broken down into chemicals and instincts and biological imperatives. He had always thought he was just being a good teacher, just caring about his students. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe humanity's long history of caring for helpless babies had created something unique, a species that could look at any young being, regardless of how alien, and see a child who needed protection and comfort. He thought about the 6 juveniles he would meet in 3 days. 6 young beings who were struggling, acting out, hurting. 6 kids who needed someone to care. His phone buzzed with a message from Elder Thavros. Just 2 lines. Rexon asked about you today. He wanted to know if you were angry at him for fighting. Hyunwoo typed back. Tell him I'm not angry. Tell him I'm proud of him for being brave enough to show his feelings. I'll see him soon. The response came quickly. You are an unusual being, Teacher Park. I hope you know that. Hyunwoo smiled in the darkness. Unusual, maybe, but also exactly what he needed to be. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had known for millions of years. Every child, no matter how different, deserved to feel safe and loved. The observation dome was designed for maximum visibility, a large circular room with transparent walls curving upward to form a ceiling. Above, a viewing gallery allowed observers to watch everything happening below. Cameras positioned at every angle, sensors embedded in the walls to measure everything from temperature to emotional stress markers. Hyun-woo stood in the center of the dome, feeling very much like an animal in a zoo. Above him, he could see the dark shapes of observers filling the gallery. The board members were there, Jia, Mira, and Daejung, Elder Thavros and the Velkari delegation, representatives from dozens of species who had heard about the human teacher and wanted to see this phenomenon for themselves. Commander Tavix and his security team stood just outside the dome's entrance, weapons holstered but present. Protocol required armed security during any event involving aggressive juveniles. Tavix had argued for more security. The board had overruled him. This was a demonstration, not a combat situation. At least everyone hoped it was just a demonstration. Jia's voice came through the dome's speakers. "Hyun-woo, can you hear me?" "Yes," he said, looking up toward the gallery. "We're going to bring in the juveniles one at a time. Take as long as you need with each one. There's no time limit, no expectations, just do what you do," Hyun-woo nodded. He had dressed casually today, soft clothes, nothing intimidating. He had brought some items from his quarters, a few toys, some snacks suitable for various species, a soft blanket. They sat in a small pile near the dome's center. Hyun-woo himself sat cross-legged on the floor next to them, waiting. Bringing in Subject 1, an automated voice announced. The dome's door slid open. A small creature entered, pushed gently by a handler who quickly retreated. The door sealed behind them. The Kravix hatchling was about the size of a large house cat, covered in mottled green and brown scales. 6 legs, a long tail, and a mouthful of very sharp teeth. Its species were omnivorous predators known for being territorial and aggressive. According to the file Hyun-woo had read, this particular hatchling, named Tix, had bitten 3 different caregivers in the past month. The last bite required medical treatment. Tix stood near the door, body low and tense. Its eyes were fixed on Hyun-woo with clear suspicion. A low hissing sound came from its throat. "Hello, Tix," Hyun-woo said softly. He didn't move, didn't reach out, just stayed seated, relaxed, non-threatening. "I'm Hyun-woo. You don't know me yet, but that's okay. You don't have to come near me if you don't want to." Tix hissed louder. Its tail lashed side to side. In the gallery above, Hyun-woo heard whispered conversations, probably people betting on how long before he got bitten. He ignored them. His entire focus was on the small, scared creature in front of him. "I brought some things," Hyun-woo continued, gesturing slowly toward the pile beside him. "Some toys, some food. A blanket that's really soft. You can have any of them if you want. Or you can just stay over there. Whatever makes you comfortable." Tix took a small step forward, then stopped. Its eyes darted between Hyun-woo and the items. Curiosity was fighting with fear. "I know this is scary," Hyun-woo said. "New place. Strange being. Lots of people watching. That would make me nervous too. It's okay to be scared. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're smart enough to be careful." Several minutes passed. Hyun-woo just sat quietly, occasionally talking in a soft voice but mostly just being present. Non-threatening. Patient. He had learned long ago that sometimes the best thing you could do was just wait. Finally, Tix took another step. Then another. It approached the pile of items, giving Hyun-woo a wide berth. Its eyes never left him, watching for any sudden movement. When it reached the toys, it sniffed carefully. "The blue one bounces," Hyun-woo said. "The red one makes a soft sound if you squeeze it. Take whichever you like." Tix grabbed the red toy in its mouth. The toy made a gentle squeaking sound. Tix jumped back, startled, then approached again. It bit the toy again, gentler this time. Squeak. The hatchling's tail began to sway differently. Not aggressively, but with interest. "That's a good choice," Hyun-woo said. "That was my favorite too." Tix played with the toy for several minutes, gradually relaxing. Then it noticed the food. Small pieces of dried meat suitable for carnivorous species. The hatchling approached cautiously, grabbed a piece, and retreated to the far side of the dome to eat it. "You can have more," Hyun-woo said. "There's plenty." Tix came back, took another piece. This time it didn't retreat as far. The third time it stayed near the pile, eating while watching Hyun-woo. "I'm not going to hurt you," Hyun-woo said quietly. I know others have. I know you've had to protect yourself. But you're safe here. I promise. In the gallery, Elder Thavro spoke quietly to Jia. It is calmer, but it has not approached him directly. It still fears him. Wait, Jia whispered back. Hyunwoo slowly extended his hand, palm down toward Tix, not reaching, just offering. The hatchling stopped eating and stared at the hand. Its entire body tensed. You don't have to, Hyunwoo said. But if you want to smell me, figure out if I'm safe, that's okay. I won't grab you. I won't hurt you. Just sniff if you want. Tix's nostrils flared. It was clearly trying to read Hyunwoo's scent from a distance. Finally, with slow, cautious movements, it approached. Its neck extended, bringing its snout closer to Hyunwoo's hand. 1 inch away. Half an inch. Then it bit him. The gallery gasped. Security moved toward the entrance. Wait! Hyunwoo called out, his voice calm despite the sharp pain. The bite hadn't broken skin. Tix's jaws weren't fully closed. It was a test bite, not an attack bite. It's okay. Stay back. He looked at Tix, who still had Hyunwoo's finger in its mouth. The hatchling's eyes were wide, watching for his reaction. That hurt a little, Hyunwoo said conversationally. But I know you're scared. I know you're testing to see if I'm safe. So go ahead. Bite me if you need to. I'm not going anywhere. Tix bit down harder. Still not enough to break skin, but hard enough that Hyunwoo had to suppress a wince. He stayed perfectly still, breathing slowly, keeping his body language relaxed. It's okay, he repeated softly. You're okay. The hatchling released his finger. Looked at him. Bit again, a different finger this time. Hyunwoo didn't react beyond a small smile. Getting it out of your system? That's fine. Take your time. Tix bit him twice more, each bite a little less hard. Then it stepped back, confused. This human wasn't fighting back. Wasn't yelling. Wasn't afraid. The hatchling's entire understanding of the situation was being challenged. Hyunwoo slowly reached down and picked up the blanket. He draped it over his lap, creating a soft surface. Then he returned his hands to his sides, non-threatening. Whenever you're ready, he said. No pressure. Tix stared at him for a long moment. Then with movements so slow they almost seemed painful, it approached. One step another, it reached the blanket. Touched it with one paw. The fabric was soft, warm from being near Hyunwoo. The hatchling climbed onto the blanket. Still watching Hyunwoo, still ready to flee, but it settled down on the soft fabric, its body touching Hyunwoo's leg. A minute passed. 2. Gradually, Tix's muscles relaxed. Its eyes began to close. Hyunwoo slowly, carefully, placed one hand on the hatchling's back. Tix tensed but didn't move away. Hyunwoo began to gently stroke the scales, a soft rhythmic motion. There you go, Hyunwoo whispered. You're safe. You're good. You're such a brave little one, aren't you? So brave. The hatchling made a sound no one in the gallery had ever heard a Kravix make. A soft, trilling purr-like sound. Its eyes closed completely. Within minutes, it was asleep, curled on Hyunwoo's lap, one of the most aggressive species juveniles sleeping peacefully in a human's arms. The gallery was completely silent. Subject 2, Jia said quietly, her voice shaking slightly. The demonstration continued. The twin Morvath cubs came in together, short, stocky creatures covered in thick fur with powerful jaws and territorial instincts. They started fighting immediately, just as their file said they would. Aggressive toward each other over everything, space, toys, attention. Hyunwoo separated them gently, giving each their own space. He talked to them separately, validated their feelings, helped them understand they didn't need to compete for resources. There was enough for both. Enough space. Enough toys. Enough of him. It took longer with them, almost an hour. But eventually the twins were playing together, sharing toys, even grooming each other while Hyunwoo sat nearby. The fighting had stopped not because he forced it, but because he had removed the scarcity they thought they were fighting over. The Targesh juvenile came next, a creature that looked like a small bear made of crystals. It was known for destroying property when stressed. Its file listed hundreds of incidents of damaged equipment, broken furniture, shattered windows. Hyunwoo didn't focus on stopping the destruction. He focused on understanding why it happened. He talked to the juvenile, asking questions, listening. Eventually, the truth came out. The Targesh was overwhelmed by noise. The station was too loud, too busy. Breaking things was the only way it knew to express its distress. Hyunwoo taught it a different way, showed it how to use words, gave it tools to express feelings without destruction, sat with it in the quiet. Within 30 minutes, the Targesh was calm, sitting next to Hyunwoo and talking using a simple communication device. No property destroyed, no aggressive behavior, just a scared kid who needed help understanding their own emotions. The two spiked thornback young were perhaps the most challenging. Their species was covered in venomous spines that extended when threatened. Being near them was genuinely dangerous. Their file showed they had spine-struck 7 different handlers. Hyunwoo didn't try to touch them. Instead, he sat at a safe distance and just talked. He told them stories about Earth, about oceans and mountains, about children playing. He asked them questions about their home world. What did they miss?
What scared them?
What made them happy? The thornbacks slowly retracted their spines. Not all the way, but enough. They inched closer to hear the stories better. Eventually, they were sitting near Hyunwoo, not touching but present, content, safe. Their spines fully retracted for the first time since arriving at the academy. By the end of the demonstration, Hyunwoo sat in the center of the dome surrounded by 6 juvenile beings from notoriously aggressive species. Tix was still asleep on his lap. The Morvath twins were curled against his sides. The Targesh leaned against his back. The Thornback sat nearby, spines flat, eyes half closed in contentment. The gallery above was chaos. People were arguing, discussing, analyzing. Elder Thavros stood at the window, staring down at the scene with an expression Hyunwoo couldn't read. Jia's voice came through the speaker again, thick with emotion. Hyunwoo, that was. We need time to analyze this. We're going to have handlers carefully collect the juveniles now. Are you okay? Hyunwoo looked down at the sleeping hatchling on his lap, felt the warm weight of the twins against his sides. I'm good. Take your time. Let them wake up naturally if possible. No need to rush. As handlers slowly, carefully removed the juveniles one by one, all of them showing confusion and reluctance to leave, Mira stood in the gallery with tears in her eyes. Did you see? She whispered to Daejung. Did you see what he did? I saw, the psychologist replied. He didn't treat them like problems to be solved. He treated them like children to be understood. And that made all the difference. In that moment, watching 6 previously aggressive juveniles being gently carried away, all of them calm and content, the galaxy began to understand what humanity had brought to the stars. Not weapons, not technology, not even wisdom, just the simple, profound ability to care. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from 47 different species had come to hear the final decision about teacher Hyunwoo Park and the implications of what the demonstration had revealed. The room hummed with conversation in dozens of languages, translated in real time by communication devices. Administrator Vex called the session to order, her crystalline body glowing with formal purple. We have reviewed the data from the demonstration. We have consulted with psychologists, biologists, and cultural experts from multiple species. Today we will hear final statements before the council makes its decision. Professor Thalen stood first, his silver feathers ruffled with agitation. I must voice my concerns. What we witnessed was remarkable, yes, but it also confirms that humans operate on emotional instinct rather than rational protocol. Teacher Park allowed himself to be bitten multiple times. He put himself in close proximity with venomous beings. He ignored established safety procedures at every turn. This is not a model we should encourage. Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the audience. Many species valued logic and protocol above emotional response. The idea of basing an entire educational approach on feelings made them uncomfortable. Commander Tavik stood next. The massive Granthian looked uncomfortable speaking in such a formal setting, but his voice was steady. I am security chief. My job is to keep being safe. By every measure of my training, Teacher Park's methods are dangerous, but... He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. But I have reviewed injury reports for the past 5 years. Juveniles supervised by human staff have 62% fewer injuries than those supervised by other species. Human staff safety violations are higher, yes, but actual harm is lower, significantly lower. This caused more murmurs, these ones more surprised. Dr. Mira Kato approached the speaking platform, her tablet filled with data. I've completed a comprehensive biological analysis. Humans possess unusual neurological responses to juvenile distress across species. When exposed to distressed young, any young human stress hormones spike, followed by an overwhelming drive to provide comfort. This isn't training, it's biology. Humans are essentially wired to parent any creature that displays juvenile characteristics. She pulled up brain scans, showing the neural pathways lighting up. Other species have parental instincts for their own young. Humans have parental instincts for everything small, vulnerable, or displaying distress signals. This made them successful cooperative breeders on their home world. In a galactic context, it makes them uniquely suited for cross-species childcare. Dae-Jung Lee followed her, presenting psychological data. I've interviewed the juveniles from the demonstration and their families. All 6 juveniles showed decreased stress markers, improved sleep patterns, and better emotional regulation after their session with Teacher Park. More significantly, their families reported the juveniles were easier to manage at home. One session with a caring human adult gave these juveniles tools to handle their emotions that weeks of traditional discipline had not provided. The audience was split. Some species saw this as proof of humanity's value. Others saw it as concerning emotional manipulation. Then Elder Thavros stood. The entire room fell silent. Velkhari held significant influence in the galactic community. What he said would carry enormous weight. I am Elder Thavros of the Velkhari delegation. My people are warriors. We have been warriors for 5,000 years. We breed strength, courage, independence. We remove weakness from our young so they may survive in a harsh universe. His voice was firm, commanding. This is what we believed. This is what we have always done. He paused, his large eyes scanning the room. But my grandson, Rexon, came home from the academy 3 weeks ago. He cried in my arms. He told me he was scared. He asked me if it was okay to feel afraid sometimes. And the elder's voice cracked slightly. I did not know what to tell him. Because in 5,000 years of Velkhari culture, we never taught our people how to answer that question. The room was absolutely silent now. Teacher Park told my grandson that fear is not weakness, that asking for help is brave, that he is valued not for his strength but for who he is, and my grandson believed him. More than that, my grandson felt safe enough to show vulnerability. Thavros's voice grew stronger. We Velkhari removed comfort behavior from our species intentionally. We thought it made us stronger, but watching my grandson sleep peacefully for the first time in months, watching him smile without fear, I wonder if we made a terrible mistake. He turned to face Hyunwoo directly. Teacher Park, my people owe you an apology. We accused you of making our young weak, but you did not make them weak. You made them feel safe. There is a difference we forgot. Thavros addressed the council again. The Velkhari delegation has made a decision. We request that human caregivers be assigned to all Velkhari youth in the academy system. Furthermore, we wish to establish a cultural exchange program where humans teach Velkhari parents how to provide emotional support to their young. We cannot continue as we have been. Our people are warriors, yes, but even warriors must first be children. The announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Velkhari, requesting help with parenting from another species, admitting their methods might be flawed. It was unprecedented. Other delegates began standing, requesting to speak. The Granthian representative announced they wished to hire human counselors for their youth programs. The Sklith delegation requested human consultants to review their educational protocols. One by one, species that had initially been skeptical began expressing interest in learning from humanity's caregiving. Approach administrator. Vex had to call for order multiple times as the chamber erupted in discussion and debate. Jia Kim finally took the platform. I have been compiling reports from all academy facilities in the galactic network. We currently have 73 human staff members working in education and childcare roles across 42 stations. I surveyed all of them. Without exception, they report behavior similar to Teacher Park's. They comfort distressed juveniles. They prioritize emotional safety. They form bonds with students across species. And without exception, their students show better outcomes. She pulled up statistics. Student retention in human supervised programs, 94%. System average, 57%. Student reported satisfaction in human supervised programs, 88%. System average, 61%. Academic performance in human supervised programs, 17% above average. These are not small differences. These are revolutionary differences. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Jia raised her voice. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for less than 50 years. We're new. We're strange. Our biology is unusual, our psychology is different. But we bring something to the galaxy that has been missing. We bring the ability to make children, any children, feel safe, valued, and loved. Professor Thalen stood again. But surely this can be taught. Surely other species can learn these methods. Mira shook her head. The methods can be taught, but the instinct can't. Humans don't have to think about comforting a distressed juvenile. They just do it. Their biology compels them. Other species can learn techniques, can improve their approach, but they won't have the same automatic species-blind nurturing response that humans have. So humans are uniquely qualified for this role? Vex asked. For cross-species childcare? Yes, Daejong confirmed. No other species we've studied has this combination of factors. Automatic nurturing response to any juvenile, high tolerance for physical contact across species boundaries, strong drive to provide emotional comfort and patience with prolonged dependency. Humans evolved to care for helpless young for extended periods. That evolution created psychological tools that work across species lines. The debate continued for hours. Arguments for and against. Concerns about over-relying on one species. Excitement about improving student welfare. Questions about training, implementation, cultural sensitivity. Finally, Administrator Vex called for a vote. The proposal: establish a new position called Cross-Species Student Welfare Coordinator. Humans would be recruited and trained for these positions across the Academy network. They would work alongside existing staff, focusing specifically on student emotional well-being and crisis intervention. All in favor? The vote was overwhelming. 41 species approved. Only 6 abstained. None voted against. Vex's color shifted to official gold. The motion passes. Teacher Hyunwoo Park, you are hereby promoted to Head of Student Welfare for Station Epsilon 7. You will also serve as primary trainer for the new Human Welfare Coordinator program. Your methods will be documented, studied, and adapted into new protocols. Congratulations. Hyunwoo, who had been sitting quietly through the entire proceeding, looked stunned. I'm not sure I'm qualified to train others. You are exactly qualified, Elder Thavros said. You do not need to teach technique. You need to teach humans to trust their instincts, to not be afraid of caring. That is the lesson. The session ended, but Hyunwoo was immediately surrounded by delegates wanting to speak with him, parents asking about their children, administrators requesting consultations. It was overwhelming. Jia rescued him, pulling him aside to a quiet corner.
How are you doing?
I'm not sure, Hyunwoo admitted. A few weeks ago, I was just a teacher trying to help some scared kids. Now I'm apparently the head of a new program that's going to change galactic education. You're still just a teacher trying to help scared kids, Jia said gently. The scope got bigger, that's all. But the core mission hasn't changed. Over the next weeks, changes began happening rapidly. Human staff were recruited from Earth and from other stations. Hyunwoo found himself training them, though mostly he just encouraged them to do what came naturally. The response from students was immediate and dramatic. Juvenile distress calls dropped by 38% in the first month alone. The 3 Velkari cubs, Rexon, Vara, and Kos, became regular visitors to Hyunwoo's office. They would come by after classes, sometimes just to sit quietly while doing homework. Sometimes to talk about their problems, sometimes just because they wanted to be near someone who made them feel safe. One evening, Kos asked Hyunwoo a question. Teacher, why do you care about us? We're not human. We're not even the same kind of alive as you. Hyunwoo thought about all the research, all the brain scans, all the evolutionary biology, but he gave Kos a simpler answer. You're right, you're not human. But you're still kids. And kids need adults who care about them. That's just how it works. But why? Kos persisted. Hyunwoo smiled. Because a long, long time ago on Earth, human babies were really helpless. They needed lots of adults to take care of them. So humans evolved to be really good at caring for babies and children, not just human ones. Any young being that needs help. It's just part of who we are. So you can't help it? Vara asked. You have to care? I guess so. But I also want to care. It makes me happy when you're happy. It makes me feel good when you're safe. That's not a burden. That's a gift. The cubs seemed to think about this. Then Rexon said quietly, I wish Velkari were like that. I wish my parents knew how to do what you do. They're learning, Hyunwoo said. Your parents love you. They just forgot how to show it. But they're remembering now. Give them time. Months passed. The program expanded. 50 human welfare coordinators were now working across the Academy network. Student welfare metrics improved across every measure. More species requested human staff. Some species even began studying human child rearing practices to adapt them for their own cultures. One day, Hyunwoo received a message from Earth. A news organization wanted to interview him about humanity's contribution to galactic society. They wanted to talk about technology, diplomacy, trade agreements. Hyunwoo politely declined. Humanity's contribution wasn't technology or politics. It was simpler and more profound than that. It was sitting on the floor with a scared kid and saying, "You're safe. I'm here. You matter." It was understanding that strength came in many forms, and sometimes the strongest thing you could do was be gentle. It was proving that in a galaxy of warriors, scholars, and traders, there was still immense value in simply knowing how to care. 6 months after the demonstration, the Academy held a ceremony recognizing the new welfare program. Hyunwoo stood at the podium, looking out at an audience of students, staff, and delegates from across the galaxy. He had prepared a speech but decided to set it aside. "When I was a kid," he said instead, "I had a teacher who noticed I was struggling. I was too embarrassed to ask for help, too scared to admit I was confused. But she noticed anyway. She stayed after class and sat with me. She didn't make me feel stupid. She just helped me understand." That teacher changed my life, not because she taught me biology or math, but because she showed me that someone cared. He looked down at the front row where the 6 juveniles from the demonstration sat with their families. Tix, the Morvath twins, the Targish, and the Thornbacks. All of them healthy, happy, thriving. Every kid deserves that. Every young being, no matter their species, deserves to have an adult who notices when they're struggling and who cares enough to help. That's not a human thing. That's not a special program. That's just what adults should do for children. Humans just happen to be really good at remembering that. He paused, emotion catching in his throat. So to all the students here, human and alien alike, you matter. Your feelings matter. Your fears and your joys and your struggles matter. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. And that's enough. That's always enough. The applause started small, then grew. Students from dozens of species stood, some making sounds of approval in their own languages, some simply watching with shining eyes. Elder Thavros stood in the back of the auditorium with his grandson beside him. Rexon had grown in the past months, but he still came to his grandfather's side when he needed comfort. The elder looked down at his grandson and, for the first time in his long life, tried something he had never done before. He pulled Rexon close in an embrace, an awkward one. Belkari physiology didn't make hugging easy, but he tried, and Rexon, surprised and delighted, pressed close to his grandfather and purred. Around them, other Velkari families watched. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked thoughtful. A few began trying to emulate what Thavros had done, reaching for their own young with tentative affection. It would take time, generations maybe, but change had begun. Up on the podium, Hyunwoo watched this and smiled. This was why he taught. Not for the salary or the recognition, but for moments like this, watching beings learn to care, watching families heal, watching children feel safe. Commander Tavik stood in the back of the room, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable with all the emotion on display. But even he had to admit, in his official security report later, that the human approach to student welfare had exceeded all expectations. He ended his report with a recommendation. Recruit more humans. Deploy them throughout the academy system. These beings possess a unique and valuable skill set that enhances station safety, improves juvenile outcomes, and strengthens interspecies understanding. Classification: strategic asset, priority high. But to Hyunwoo, walking back to his classroom after the ceremony with a cluster of students around him, some walking, some floating, some skittering on multiple legs, he wasn't a strategic asset. He was just a teacher, just a human doing what humans did best. Caring for the young, all of them, always. And across the galaxy, as word spread of the humans and their unique gift, parents from 1,000 worlds began to wonder, what would happen if everyone cared for children the way humans did? What would the galaxy look like if every young being felt safe, valued, and loved? The answer, they were beginning to discover, was a galaxy transformed, not through conquest or technology or trade, but through something simpler and infinitely more powerful. Through compassion, through patience, through the simple act of looking at a scared child, any child from any world, and saying the words that every young being needs to hear. You're safe. I'm here. You matter. In the end, that was humanity's greatest contribution to the stars, not because humans were special or superior, but because they remembered something the galaxy had forgotten, that before warriors or scholars, before traders or leaders, before everything else, there are children, and children need to be loved. That was the human way. And slowly, beautifully, it was becoming the galactic way too. Years would pass. The program would grow. Thousands of human welfare coordinators would spread across hundreds of stations, each one carrying forward the simple lesson that caring was not weakness, that compassion was strength, that every child deserved to feel safe. But it all started in Classroom 7B, with 3 Velkari cubs who just needed someone to tell them it was okay to be scared, with a human teacher who couldn't help but care, with a moment that proved sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe isn't technology or weapons or knowledge. Sometimes the most powerful thing is simply being there for someone who needs you. That was the human gift to the galaxy. And the galaxy, slowly learning to accept it, was better for it. The story of teacher Hyunwoo Park and the 3 Velkari cubs who purred in his arms became legend. Not because it was extraordinary, but because it was simple, true, and desperately needed. And in classrooms across the stars, human teachers continued doing what they did best, sitting with scared children, drying tears, offering comfort, and proving that in a vast and sometimes frightening universe, there were still beings who cared. Always cared. Would always care, because that's what humans do.